In this slide, I am going to illustrate the concept of copying an object and how it is different from copying a normal variable of any primitive data type. So when you want to copy a normal variable, you just make use of the assignment operator, as you can see in this example in the left hand side of the slide. So what did I do in the first example? In the first example, I have introduced an integer type variable called v1 and I have assigned the value 20 inside that variable. And then in order to copy the content of the variable in an entirely different integer type of variable, what I did is I have introduced another integer type variable named copy of v1 and then use this equals symbol or this assignment operator, and then in the right hand side of the assignment operator I just wrote v1. So what it will do is it will simply copy the content of v1 variable in an entirely new variable called copy of v1. The same thing happens in the next couple of examples also. In the second example, there is a variable called of type v double called v2, and by making a copy of v2 in this part, what I am doing is the content of v2 is being copied in an entirely different double variable called copy of v2. The similar thing happens in the third example also, where the content of v3 is basically being copied in an entirely different character type variable called copy of v3, like this. So this is easy, and I believe you already know this from your programming fundamental concept. So this is easy. But now if you use this concept to make a separate copy of an object, that won't work. So what happens is when you use this equals or symbol or this assignment operator to make a copy of an object, something like this, it basically copy the address of the object. So instead of making a separate copy of the object, it basically copy the address of an object. So this address is basically being copied into this copy of an object. So the concept can be clarified with this example in this left hand side. So here, as I have shown, if you just copy of make all these things, instead of copying the variable, it is copying the address of the object. It does not really copy the content. So for easy visualization, you can consider this example. Let us say you have a house, something like this, and this house has lots of different things. Let's say some doors, some windows, like this. And of course, this house has some address. Let's say you wrote that address in a letter. All right, so this is your house and this is your address. So this address, this letter, this is basically pointing to this house. All right, so now if you just make something like this, let's say copy of house equals house. So if you just make use of this assignment operator or this equals symbol, it does not really make a separate replica of house. It does not do like this. So you may think that this made a separate replica of the house in another different place or in another different another different street. So like this copy of the house, you may think that this happened, but if you use this assignment symbol like this in order to copy it, it does not happen at all. So what happened is, if you use this assignment symbol, it basically just copy the address in somewhere else. So instead of making an entirely separate replica of the house, it basically copy the address in some other letter, let's say letter 2. And once this address is copied, in the copy also, this copied thing also is pointing to the same address as it was doing before. So since there is no replica, this address is also basically pointing to the same house here. So what happened when you do it in the Java program? Basically, let's say an object is created in the memory. So let's say this is my an object. After you created after this line is executed, an object is created in the memory. Now whenever you are doing like copy of an object equals an object, instead of making a separate replica, instead of making a separate replica of an object, it does not happen. It basically start pointing to the same an object as you can see in here. So once again, in a normal variable of primitive data type, if you use assignment operator, it creates an entirely different, entirely new variable and copy the content of the previous variable into that new variable. But when you use this assignment symbol to copy an object, it basically does not make a separate replica of the object. Rather, it just copy the object and copy the address of the object and start pointing to the same object.